Navadip Dham ki jai, Mathura Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Yamuna Mayi ki jai, Ganga Mayi ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya. Krishna 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 Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda Saraswati Prabhupada Nirvishesha Srinivada Prabhupada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 2. Entitled The Cosmic Manifestation. Chapter 2. Entitled The Lord in the Heart. So, no way, would you be able to show him how to do the database? You can send him the link. This is Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 37. Okay, so we'll do call and response from the word-for-word translation. Vivanti ye bhagavataha atmanaha satam katha amritam samritam punanti te. Oh, I think I missed one. Shravana Bhuteshu Samritam Punanti Te Vishaya Vidushita Ashayam Vrijanti Tat Charana Saro Ruha Antikam Vivanti ye Bhagavata Atmanasatam Tatamritam Shravana Pute Shu Sambritam Gunanti te Vishaya Vidushitashayam Vrijanti Tacharana Saroru Hantikam. Vivanti ye Bhagavata Atmanasatam Katamritam Shravana Puteshu Sambritam. Unanti te Vishaya Vidushitashayam Vrijanti Tacharana Saroru Hantikam. Vivanti ye Bhagavata Atmanasatam Katamritam Shravanaputeshu Sambritam Gunantite Vishaya Vidushitashayam Brajanti Tacharana Saroruhantikam. Okay. So he may be coming now. Do we have one mic? Did we get one mic? It's Prabhu, yeah.
Pibantiye Bhagavata Atmana Satam Katamritam Shravana Puteshu Samritam
Katamritam Shravana Puteshu Sambritam
Gunantite Vishaya Vidushita
Punantite Vishaya Vudishitashayam
Rajanti Tacharana Saruhanitikam
Prajanti Tacharana Sarohuhantikam
Pibantiye Bhagavata Atmana Satam
Pibantiye Bhagavata Atmanasatam
Katamritam Shravana Puteshu Samritam
Katamritam Shravana Puteshu Samritam
Gunantite Vishaya Vidushitashayam
Punantite Vishaya Vudishitashayam
Rajanti Tacharana Saroruhantikam
Brajanti Tacharana Saroruhantikam. You have to hold it at the top. Okay. Okay.
Tamirtan Sravana Puteshu Sambritam
Katamritam Shravana Puteshu Samritam
Punantite Vishaya Vidushitasayam
Punantite Vishaya Vudishitashayam
Rajantita Sharana Saroruhantikam
Prajanti Tacharana Saroruhantikam. Yeah.
Evantiye Bhagavata Atmana Satam
Devantiye Bhagavata
Katamritam Shravana Puteshu Sambritam
Katamritam Shravana Puteshu Samritam
Punanti te Vishaya Vidushitam Shayam Rajanti Tacharana Shararu Antikam Vipanti Bhagavatatmana Satam
Zanjana Sasatam
Katamritam Shravana Puteshu Sambritam
Katamritam Shravana Puteshu Samritam
Punanti te Vishaya Vidushita Shayam
Punantite Vishaya Vudishitashayam
Rajanti Tacharana Sarorukantikam
Prajanti Tacharana Saroruhantikam. Thank you for chanting the devotees. Yeah. And does anybody want to chant that's online? You can raise the hand or you can just speak up. We'll be able to hear you. Thank you so much. Pibanti, who drink. Ye, those. Bhagavataha, of the personality of Godhead. Atmanaha, of the most dear. Satam, of devotees. Kata Amritam, the nectar of the messages. Shravana Puteshu, within the ear holes. Samritam, fully filled. Punanti, purify. Te, there. Vishaya, material enjoyment. Vidushita ashayam, polluted aim of life. Vrajanti, do go back. Tat, the Lord's. Charana, feet. Saroruha antikam, near the lotus. Translation. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. Report. The sufferings of human society are due to a polluted aim of life, namely lording it over the material resources. The more human society engages in the exploitation of undeveloped material resources for sense gratification, the more it will become entrapped by the illusory material energy of the Lord, and thus the distress of the world will be intensified instead of diminished. The human necessities of life are fully supplied by the Lord in the shape of food grains, milk, fruit, wood, stone, sugar, silk, jewels, cotton, salt, water, vegetables, etc. in sufficient quantity to feed and care for the human race of the world, as well as the living beings on each and every planet within the universe. The supply source is complete, and only a little energy by the human being is required to get his necessities into the proper channel. There is no need of machines and tools or huge steel plants for artificially creating comforts of life. Life is never made comfortable by artificial needs, but by plain living and high thinking. The highest perfectional thinking for human society is suggested here by Shukadev Goswami, namely, sufficiently hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. For men in this age of Kali, when they have lost the perfect vision of life, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight by which to see the real path. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada has commented on the Kathamritam mentioned in this verse and has indicated Srimad Bhagavatam to be the nectarian message of the personality of Godhead. By sufficient hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, the polluted aim of life, namely lording it over matter, will subside, and the people in general in all parts of the world will be able to live a peaceful life of knowledge and bliss. For a pure devotee of the Lord, any topics in relation with his name, fame, quality, entourage, etc., are all pleasing. And because such topics have been approved by great devotees like Narada, Hanuman, Nanda Maharaj, and other inhabitants of Vrindavan, certainly such messages are transcendental and pleasing to the heart and soul. And by the constant hearing of the messages of the Bhagavad Gita and later of Srimad Bhagavatam, one is assured herein by Srila Shukadev Goswami that he will reach the personality of Godhead and render him transcendental loving service in the spiritual planet of the name Goloka Vrindavan, which resembles a huge lotus flower. Thus, by the process of bhakti yoga, directly accepted, as suggested in this verse, by sufficient hearing of the transcendental message of the Lord, the material contamination is directly eliminated without one's attempting to contemplate the impersonal Virat conception of the Lord. And by practicing bhakti yoga, if the performer is not purified from the material contamination, he must be a pseudo-devotee. For such an impostor, there is no remedy for being freed from material entanglement. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the second canto, second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Lord in the Heart. Sanskrit again. Pibanti ye bhagavata atmana satam kathamritam shravanaputeshu samritam punanti te vishaya buddhishitashayam vrajanti tach charana saroruhantikam. Translation. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada points out that suffering in this material world is due to an improper aim or a polluted aim. That the human society are experiencing sufferings because our goal, our destination has been set. Our sights are set on something which is polluted, or which is something which is other than our real ultimate welfare. Prabhupada points out that the exploitation of undeveloped material resources for sense gratification. So there's very large fields in the material, educational arena that have to do with locating, measuring, extracting, processing, natural resources of all varieties. There are persons that do a lot of work using different advanced technologies to locate stocks of natural resources below the Earth's surface. Different things like natural gas and mineral deposits, different types of soils which are meant for certain types of, which have certain, properties. There are persons who study, wood and how to properly extract it and replant it in such a way that there will always be some more and more supply. Then they try to arrange. There's large fields which have to do with, supply chain. How do we move these things? How do we actually get them from the stockhouse to the producers, to the manufacturers? Right? And there's huge fields having to do with how to take the raw materials and convert them into something which somebody will want to buy. Then there's a huge field, as was discussed by Prabhupada in the Lilamrita this morning, that there's big billboards saying, please buy this, right? Big field. How to entice somebody to feel that they need that product, right? Then there's a whole huge field, how to get rid of all the stuff that people don't need anymore. Because such objects are filling our homes and our trash cans and in the blink of an eye. It's very interesting. And there's a whole field that is dedicated how to manage that waste. Now that we don't need the toy guitar, or the plastic container that I bought my food in, and all this, what to do with it? Where does it go? Somebody makes big money to solve that problem. But it's all of these so-called solutions are made at the expense of Mother Nature. All these solutions, all these things. And in the Vedic conception, that Mother Nature or Mother Earth, that's very appropriate. According to the Vedic conception, Mother Earth is named Bhumi, and we are taught to address women as mother. And she is the personality who's the presiding deity of this earth planet. But even bigger than that, she is working under the direction of the Supreme Lord Krishna. And she's ready to produce abundance of natural resources. That's like her mystic power. She can do it instantaneously. She doesn't have to, make some big endeavor. According to her ability, she can provide unlimited natural resources for the society. But she will restrict human society if we are cultivating and indulging in the demoniac principles. Demoniac means godless. That was discussed this morning too in the Lilamrita, that this society on the whole is becoming more and more godless, human society. And because we're always searching after pleasure, right? The Lord is known as Ananda Maya Vyasat. He seeks pleasure. He seeks bliss. And we, being part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, we have that same quality, like Father, like Son. Who doesn't want to be happy, right? You can't find anybody, you can't even find an insect that wants to experience displeasure. Doesn't make sense. Is it not logical? But we search for that pleasure based on our consciousness. our level or our conception of life. And so this idea that the aim of life is to enjoy through this temporary machine as much as possible till it's shriveled and dried up, and then I'll enjoy with the mind until I have my last breath. Right? Even an old fellow who is completely invalid cannot actually use his body to gain any pleasure, hardly. He will be contemplating material sense gratification until his last moment, whatever it may be. Oh, I want to drive this car. I want to touch that. I want to see this. I want to taste that. Even if he can't do it physically, that's what he'll leave this world meditating on, different pleasures that he can conceive of. So based on our conception, we're seeking for different pleasures. So because we don't have the proper aim in life, because the aim of life, our aim of life is polluted by the false identification with the temporary vessel, temporary material body, then there's no way for us to actually be happy. Because we are not this body, as discussed in Bhagavad Gita. We're the eternal part and parcel of Krishna. We're eternal spirit soul residing within this body. And just when this body becomes old and useless, we'll have to receive a new one. That's happening at every moment. Just like whenever we have a jacket, which actually has too many holes in the cuffs. I don't know why that happens, but sometimes it gets like messed up around here or like black or something. You know, thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't wear that anymore, right? Or whether some socks got too many holes in it, right? Doesn't look so professional. So we may think, well, you know, it's a sock. Well, let me get a new one, right? So just like that, when the sock is completely finished, finito, we don't mind putting it in the trash. And then we just get a new one. Similarly, these bodies are just like that. When this body, too many holes in it, too many problems, ridden with disease, and completely choked up, you know, the fluids, the lubrication in the joints is completely done. It's grinding gears in my bones, you know. Digestive juices are not flowing at all, you know. It needs an oil change, but we ran the engine without changing the oil. Too much. The oil level has gone down, and still we ran the engine too hot. We're finished. That happens actually. So be careful about that. The engine will just be finished. So this body is like that. We'll have to get a new one. So we're searching after all these material resources, trying to exploit them for the temporary satisfaction of the body, which we know is just flickering. It's called chapala sukha. Chapala sukha means it's flickering happiness. Just like you have something very nice, you know, foods, it's very pleasurable. Of course, prasadam is a whole nother world. You can be meditating on that prasadam pleasure for a long time, infinitely, eternally. But in general, we can understand that the contact with the senses, with the sense objects, is temporary. And that's why we have to dovetail those contact with the sense objects. We have to spiritualize that by adding Krishna. Then that becomes an eternal activity called bhakti rasa. Normally we're seeking for rasa, pleasure, happiness, but through this temporary body. That's temporary. It's like a drop of water in the ocean when we're really thirsty. And if we learn that lesson thoroughly enough, or we hear from people who have learned that lesson thoroughly enough, we don't have to chase that drop in the desert anymore. We can go right to the ocean of nectar, and we can drink to our heart's content. And by that drinking of transcendental pleasure experience in serving Krishna, starting with hearing about him and his devotees through the Srimad Bhagavatam, then later the Bhagavatam, then we don't have to continue this saga searching for pleasure in this place, which is never completely satisfying. We can go back to Godhead. So this verse recommends that we should fill ourselves up with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna. Any topic in relation to him is perfect and pleasing. Tushanti cha ramanti cha. The devotees, they really like talking about him. They experience satisfaction and pleasure by talking about Krishna. And we can go on and on. When you meet the devotees, you say, man, this guy, he's all about it. He just keeps going. But where can you find somebody in the material world who by that speaking, they're becoming more and more purified, more and more beautiful, more and more imbued with the wonderful qualities. Normally when somebody goes on and on and on and on and on, about some topic, then it's really unattractive. But when it becomes about Krishna and we give it a try, at first it's bitter, but we give it a try. Let me continue participating in this hearing process of topics about Krishna. Then it cures our disease. And we feel, wow, I want to know something more about Krishna. I like this talk about Krishna. I want to know more about the holy name. I like this chanting. What is it? How do I go deeper? What is it? What is this deity service? What are we doing here in the temple? This is nice. I want to know more. Like that, the disease becomes healed. So let us continue hearing nicely this katamritam, this nectar of the topics of Krishna. And we will be purified and we can go back home, back to Godhead, where we can serve the Lord in full bliss and pleasure. So thank you very much, devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.